Share on Pinterest. A coronavirus is a type of virus that can cause respiratory illness in humans and animals. In 2019, a new coronavirus called SARS-CoV-2 emerged in Wuhan, China, and quickly spread around the world. An infection with a new coronavirus causes a respiratory disease called COVID-19. As with most viruses, the incubation period of SARS-CoV-2 can vary from person to person. Read on to learn more about how long it may take for symptoms to develop and what to do if you think you have COVID-19. What to know about the incubation period. An incubation period is the time between when you contract a virus and when your symptoms start. Currently, according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC trusted source, the incubation period for the novel coronavirus is somewhere between 2 to 14 days after exposure. According to a recent report trusted source, more than 97% of people who contract SARS-CoV-2 show symptoms within 11.5 days of exposure. The average incubation period seems to be around 5 days. However, this estimate may change as we learn more about the virus. For many people, COVID-19 symptoms start as mild symptoms and gradually get worse over a few days. How is the virus transmitted? The CDC recommends trusted source that all people wear cloth face masks in public places where it's difficult to maintain a 6-foot distance from others. This will help slow the spread of the virus from people without symptoms or people who do not know they have contracted the virus. Cloth face masks should be worn while continuing to practice physical distancing. Instructions for making masks at home can be found here. Trusted source. Note: it's critical to reserve surgical masks and N95 respirators for healthcare workers. SARS-CoV-2 spreads mostly from person to person through close contact or from droplets that are scattered when a person with the virus sneezes or coughs. The novel coronavirus is highly contagious, which means it spreads easily from person to person. According to the CDC trusted source, people who have the virus are most contagious when they're showing symptoms of COVID-19. Although it's much less common, there's a possibility that someone who is infected with the coronavirus can transmit the virus even if they're not showing symptoms. It's also possible that the virus can be transmitted via touching virus-contaminated surfaces and then touching your mouth or nose. However, this isn't the main way the novel coronavirus spreads. How to protect yourself. The best way to prevent yourself from contracting the novel coronavirus is to wash your hands often. Use soap and water and wash for at least 20 seconds. If you don't have soap and water, you can also use hand sanitizer with at least 60% alcohol. Other ways to protect yourself include the following. Stay at least 6 feet away from anyone who seems sick, and avoid large groups of people. Avoid touching your face. Don't share personal items with others. This includes things like drinking glasses, utensils, toothbrushes, and lip balm. Wipe down high-touch surfaces like doorknobs, keyboards, and stair rails in your home with household cleaners or a diluted bleach solution. Wash your hands or use a hand sanitizer after touching surfaces like elevator or ATM buttons, gas pump handles, and grocery carts. Stay home and call your doctor if you start having respiratory issues and think your symptoms are consistent with those of COVID-19. What are the typical symptoms? Symptoms of COVID-19 are usually mild and develop slowly. The main symptoms are fever, shortness of breath, cough, fatigue. Other less common symptoms may include achiness, nasal congestion, sore throat, runny nose. COVID-19 has more respiratory symptoms than a cold, which usually causes a runny nose, congestion, and sneezing. Also, a fever isn't too common with a cold. The flu has similar symptoms to COVID-19. However, COVID-19 is more likely to cause shortness of breath and other respiratory symptoms. About 80% trusted source of people recover from the symptoms of COVID-19 without needing any special medical treatment. However, some people can become seriously ill after contracting COVID-19. Older adults and people with compromised immune systems are at the highest risk of developing more severe symptoms. What should you do if you think you have symptoms of COVID-19? If you think you have symptoms of COVID-19, stay home and call your doctor. Let your doctor know what type of symptoms you have, how severe your symptoms are, whether you've traveled abroad or had contact with someone who has, whether you've been around large groups of people you may need to be evaluated if your symptoms are severe or an older adult, how you have underlying health conditions, how you've been exposed to someone with COVID-19. Your doctor will determine if you need testing and what type of treatment is best. If your symptoms are mild and you have no underlying health conditions, your doctor may tell you to just stay home, rest, stay hydrated, and to avoid contact with other people. If your symptoms get worse after a few days of rest, it's important to get prompt medical care. What are the other types of coronaviruses? Coronaviruses are a certain type of virus that causes respiratory illnesses in animals and humans. Corona means crown, and the viruses are named for the proteins on the outside of the viruses that look like crowns. SARS-CoV-2 is the newest type of coronavirus that's been discovered. The source of this virus is suspected to be animals in an open-air market in China. It's still unclear what kind of animal was the source of the virus. Coronaviruses can cause respiratory illnesses that range from a mild cold to pneumonia. In fact, most people get some sort of coronavirus infection at some point in their lives. Other types of coronaviruses include SARS-CoV, which causes severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS. The incubation period for SARS is usually 2 to 7 days. Trusted source, but it can be up to 10 days in some people. MERS-CoV, which causes Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, MERS. The incubation period for MERS-CoV is between 2 and 14 days. Trusted source, with 5 to 6 days being average. The bottom line: most people who develop COVID-19 start noticing symptoms within 2 to 14 days after being exposed to the novel coronavirus known as SARS-CoV-2. On average, it takes about 5 days to develop symptoms, but this may change as we learn more about the virus. If you have symptoms of COVID-19, call your doctor for advice. Until you know what type of illness you have, stay home, and avoid contact with other people. Read this article in Spanish.